Chapter 16, First Years of Elementary School. Mom came and won the custody of me, and she was asked to stay in the country in order to maintain custody. Herself, she lived in Tel Aviv with another man, the aforementioned Zaiki. Before she set out for the adventure to the United States, I went to first grade at the only school that was in the settlement. It was called Nun Dalet HaMamlachti in honor of the 54 soldiers that had been killed in fighting for the claiming of the settlement. It's called Nun Dalet because the letter Nun is 50 and Dalet is the fourth letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and to add them together they make 54. The Hebrew alphabet has a numerical value to every letter. Our class grade was called by the Hebrew alphabet. First grade is Kita Aleph, second grade is Kita Bet, and on in the alphabet it goes until Kita Yud Bet, which together is reading from right to left. The letter Yud is a letter value of 10, which also happens to be the 10th letter of the alphabet. After that letter, the numerical value of the ensuing letters increases in multiples of 10. The letter Bet is the second letter of the alphabet and holds the value of 2. Together, 10 plus 2, they signify the value of 12. Isn't that fascinating? The science of the mathematical value of the alphabet, language, and math all enmeshed into one. We start from first grade and end with 12th grade together. We wouldn't separate throughout our school years unless our circumstances separate us from each other. At least it was true in our settlement, because there was one educational facility for the entire settlement. The difference between the United States and Israel is that in Israel there are two levels of government-subsidized education: Yesodi, elementary school, and Tichon, high school. There is no middle school. 7th grade is when you start high school. The way our school was structured was that it had both the elementary and the high school together in one facility. At the end of the last year of high school, students pass mandatory testing called Bagrut, maturity. In the United States, students get a choice between taking the SATs or not, which is like Bagrut testing in Israel. In Israel, Bagrut testing is not a matter of choice, no matter what kind of educational plans you set towards. After passing the Bagrut testing, students go to a mandatory service to the army, unless there are special circumstances for exemption. Girls serve 2 years and boys 3 years. After that, they pass additional tests to get accepted to universities of their choice or do other things if they wish. It's not like the SATs in high school in the United States that determine your eligibility to universities. To get accepted to universities in Israel, you have to take their own testing specific to their institution. Regardless of what students set to do, our children in Israel grow up much faster intellectually than your children in the United States. Nobody slips in between the cracks. In the United States, education is nothing but chaos. I want to scream at my generation here. I'm so ashamed of my generation of kids in the United States, at least in the area where I live. The generation after me is even worse. Kids of today's high school age, The way our school was planned is that we had one main teacher called Mechanechet, who taught us most of the school subjects. Within the first week of the school year, she would create a unanimous schedule for the entire class grade, where we would mostly sit in our permanently assigned classroom from period to period unless there were non-academic classes such as art or PE, or we had to use the science lab class at another location of the school. Every student in our grade had the same schedule of classes to abide by. Within the first week of the school, our teacher would dedicate one period to making a chart on the board of the official and finalized schedule for the entire school year. We had to copy the schedule of classes of the entire week on our Yoman school planner manually. We didn't have printed copies of our schedule distributed to each student. It was our responsibility to keep track of it and know which books to bring every day, because every day was a different set of classes. I didn't carry all of my books in my backpack every day. I packed the appropriate books for the next day every night. The reason why they do it that way is because if we put effort in writing down the schedule, we are more likely to appreciate the document and not lose it. Teachers don't have time to constantly print schedules for careless and irresponsible students throughout the year. Also, if you did happen to lose the original copy of your schedule that you copied from the board, you get to rely on your peers. The probability of the entire class losing the schedule is slim to none. Therefore, this way is very convenient, and on top of that, this is one practice that promotes interdependence. In the United States, however, every student has their own unique schedule of classes, which does not promote interdependence in any way. In Israel, we had over 8 subjects to cover, depending on which grade level you were in. The higher the grade level, the more subjects you had. In one school day, other than Friday, we had 6 periods, which was considered a full school day. In the United States, you are forced to sit through full 8 periods, and you only have 8 subjects to care about. You take the same subjects at the same period every day, while in Israel, every day of the week had a specific set of classes. In Israel, however, every Friday our school day was shorter. In the last period of that day, before going home, our mechanechet would conclude the week by lighting the Shabbat candles, after which we would sing patriotic songs, bid Shabbat Shalom to each other, and merrily go home. If you are in high school in Israel, you don't come to school on Fridays at all. But a Sunday in Israel is a regular business and school day. In the United States, in most schools, there are no short days in any of the 5 business days. Friday is a regular business day and Sunday is free. In Israel, our seats would be strictly assigned by the mechanechet on the first day of class. And they were permanent throughout the entire year, unless the mechanechet decided to switch the formation of the tables and reassign new seats. We didn't get to choose where we sat, and no one got to complain. Also, we didn't have single tables. We were partnered up in tables that fit 2, and the 2 of us had to figure out how to share the space of the table. Sometimes the tables were situated in ways against each other so that we had to sit in a group. Our mechanechet was allowed to use the space and the arrangement of the tables however she or he chose and however conducive it was for her or his purposes. Other teachers of other subjects other than the mechanechet had no say in that respect. They had to accommodate themselves to whatever arrangement of the classroom the mechanechet decided to partake, because she or he were the ones that taught most of the subjects of that particular grade class that she or he was in charge of. If you happen to not get along with the classmate you sat with, then too bad for you. They would simply say, "Titmoded im ze," deal with it, and move on with their business. For example, one time in 2nd grade, I was sitting next to a guy named Eliran, and he was always playing with his eyelids, turning them inwardly, flashing their innards.